Is it really true, as your biography states, that you were born in a thunderstorm?
How should I know? But my mother says so, yes. My mother says so, and I guess if you can't believe your mother, whom will you believe, huh?
Thank you very much.
I'm Bingabanan from the Diliman Shimbun. Sir, Senator De Lima was asking if may gusto daw po ba kayo sa kanya?
Ano? Ulit mo?
She was asking, sir, kung may gusto daw po ba kayo sa kanya?
With me in many a battlefield was a fair man. He was a just man. He was a courageous man. He was a man who saw right and did right. And it is not fair to accuse the Philippines of any violation of human rights when there has been no violation. Though if there has been any violation, we punish those who have violated. And I now ask that this particular writing of one of the most celebrated figures, who claims to have, at the beginning of the campaign against my government, claims to have been maltreated by some of the military men, now reports exactly what happened. I ask that my staff distribute the letter of Herrera, Trinidad Herrera.
You have indicated that the allegations about political repression and human rights are overblown. How then do you explain the findings of the international independent group Amnesty International, which documented cases of torture, disappearances, and illegal detention?
Well, I'll tell you that the Amnesty International has never come to the Philippines. That's why all they talk about is something that they obtained hearsay. Let's give one specific example. Father Abedicio, a famous case. Father Abedicio is supposed to have disappeared. He is a member of the clergy in the Philippines. He's a Filipino. He disappeared and we couldn't locate him. Not even my best intelligence officers could locate him. And what did we discover after 6 months? We discovered he had run away with somebody who claimed to be a nun, and he was in Germany. How do you like that? And we got blamed for it. We got blamed for it. That's it. That's how the Amnesty International has been reporting all this thing.
International Criminal Court says it has reason to believe crimes against humanity have been committed during Philippine President's war
and the targeting of political opponents.
Ginagawa ko na lahat. Nagkakaso-kaso na nga ako dyan sa kung anong ay International Court of Justice. Nakala naman na itong ulol, isa rin. Walang preparasyon. Hindi nagbabasa ang...
Mind you, Human Rights Commission. Tarantado pala. There is no law. There has to be a law. Do not keep on complaining about my mouth because my mouth is not the problem. It cannot bring down a country, but it can erase a generation of right thinking.
Pasag yung iyo condemnation sa akin. Sabihin ko sa kanila, fuck you. France, Britain. Tapos yung iyo ngayon, as the goal to condemn it. As again, I repeat it, fuck you. We are a nation na napakaraming addict. Itong Amerika, itong mga iyo, itong mga progressive countries, they kept on hammering the issue against me. Sabi nila, marami na 3,000 na daw ang patay. Hindi na lang inisip na mga ulol na to. Putang ina nila. Para maintindihan ng mga putang ina. Pero walang itong pare, pero hindi sila kasali sa putang ina. Alam mo, hindi naintindihan nila. Sabi nila, Duterte, may death penalty noon. Wala man nangyari. Ganon rin. Bakit mo gustong ibalik? Ulol, hindi ka naman tarantado. Hindi ako ang presidente noon. Sino nagbigay sa iyo ng karapatan na patayin mo ang anak ko, i-rape mo? Dito sa kabila. Ito, makinig kayo, Amerikano. Bugokski. Ito dito. Anong kasalanan ko sa iyo? Kayong mga gangster, kayong nasa Pilipino nakinig, yung mga putang ina ninyo, kinig kayo mabuti. Kaya kayo namamatay, ganito. Anong kasalanan ng Pilipino? Look at the history books na on sa amin. Who discovered the Philippines? The answer was Magellan. Anak na. Kung ako ang presidente noon, sampalin kita pag ginawa ko. Kaya lahat ng adik, sira ngipin, nag-grind, nag-upo tapos, kung magkapera, magbili na siya. Kaya sabi ko, puta, bantay kayo sa akin. Hindi talaga ako papayag na sirain ang bayan natin. Lumabas yung Human Rights, State Department, Obama, EU. Ginanon ako, and every time they said, we will cut our assistance. Sabi ko sa kanila, putang ina ninyo, wag mo kaming gawing aso. Gago ka ba? Hindi, walang resibo. Basta hingi na lang. Matuto kayong magsabi, ako'y Pilipino, putang ina mo, wag mo akong lukuhin sa bayan ko, letseka.
This questioner says, I have been in Manila and talked with both Filipino and U.S. businessmen. They say the Philippines are the most corrupt nation in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and that your wife's nickname is Miss 10%. Will you comment?
They must mistake us for another nation. He must have been living in the bar. Because I can tell you, there is this man, Justice Pamaran, whom I just introduced to you. He is the ombudsman. You who know what an ombudsman is, knows exactly what he can do. He doesn't wait for evidence. Any rumor whatsoever, and he investigates it. You talk about my wife. Not that I would like to defend her. She can defend herself any time. She's quite capable. But perhaps that statement was said of another First Lady, not my wife. Certainly not my wife. Perhaps I can tell you that the property of the Marcoses has been brought into a blind trust. And not a 2020 blind trust either. It's a real blind trust. And we don't know exactly how that blind trust operates the property. The only property that we have control of are two or three houses, one in the province of Ilocos Norte, not two. Two in the province of Leyte and one in Manila, 5. Then the schooling for the children, up to possibly a doctorate. Beyond that, all income goes into the Marcos Foundation, which is the foundation that embraces all property. Do you think that if there was any corruption by the Marcos family, that we can maintain the present prestige and leadership of the Marcoses in the Philippines? What do you think the Filipinos are? They are a very literate people. Literacy in the Philippines has increased up to 90% nationwide, and in Manila it is 100% literacy. And if there was any indication whatsoever of any of these corruption that you talk about, and whoever said that sounds like he has been in the wrong company. Probably the guys that he was working with may have been engaged in corruption. I'd like to know who they are. Then we'll go after them. But I can assure you, if any public official engages in corruption, he will land in jail. That is definite.
What do you say to critics who say your health is poor and you won't be around very long, but your wife may be?
Anybody want to try me in the ring? Ridiculous. I refuse to answer questions like that.
Two related questions. You are indeed a family man. Your wife, your daughter, your brothers are all government officials. Do you think the next president of your country will be a Marcos, and would you like for your wife to succeed you as president?
No, no. The problem here, of course, is that one, you do not understand Philippine politics. You see, first of all, my brother, did you say my brother was governor?
Government officials.
My brother volunteered his services for Medicare. Did you want him to withdraw his voluntary services as a medical officer? He is serving our country practically free, abandoned a very profitable medical career in order to serve what we have as Medicare, which is your Medicaid, no? Yes. He is not a government official by any means. This is a voluntary organization. My wife was elected. He was elected because the candidates wanted to include him, to include her. They wanted somebody to carry them. Minister Romulo will tell you that without the support of the governor, who happens to be well liked by the people of Manila, they probably wouldn't have won in the last elections. It's just a matter of helping out in the political campaign. My daughter is the voluntary head of a group of village leaders. That is not a political organization. That's not a government organization. This is an association of young kids who are organized in order that they can help each other. Kabataan Barangay. And I am surprised that you hold it against these young kids, that they get together so they can play football, they can encourage sports, they can encourage people, the young kids from going into drugs. Don't you think that you should also organize something here in the United States and get somebody to stop the young kids from going into drugs and instead go into sports? Well, that's what they're doing. Now, with respect to the other officials, the question, of course, doesn't specify. Let me put it this way. As I told you, our government is a caucus government, consensus. When the consensus of the party demanded that I appoint the First Lady as a member of the Executive Committee, I had an agreement with them, and that is that she would not become President or Prime Minister. At the beginning, even Prime Minister Cesar Berata was for the First Lady becoming Prime Minister. But the First Lady and I stood our ground, and we nominated Prime Minister Berata instead. Now, is that the action of anybody who is preparing to take over as a dynasty? Now, my other daughter, but she is in Pennsylvania. She's studying voice culture, and she is in anthropology. I don't see what connection that has with politics.
Mr. President, your opponents say this trip is costing between $5 million and $20 million. What is the budget for your trip?
That's ridiculous. My cabinet is spending only a very minuscule part of that. If there are any people who have joined this group, they are on their own. I'm sorry to say. They're on their own.
Do you believe the United States now has a consistent, understandable policy toward the Philippines and East Asia?
Shouldn't you ask that of the United States leaders, not me? But as far as I'm concerned, yes, insofar as we can understand. What I see is a resurgent American nation under a new leadership, trying its very best, earnestly trying to arrest decline and slide in prestige and in policy, in domestic and foreign policy. That is what we see from the outside. There is an earnest effort to prevent drift and confusion. Now, we would like to encourage that because among the small nations, there's no possibility of any progress so long as there is instability throughout the world. And so, as I said last night, what I see now, 16 years after my last visit, actually my last visit was when I came to participate in the memorial services of President Eisenhower in 1969, not 1966, 1969. And, but what I see here is while in the past America was in the dark, and there were doubts and misgivings. There were fears that you were tiring, you were weary, you doubted your own strength, you didn't know where you were going. But now there is hope, and the phenomenon, what we see is an America emerging out of the shadows. It's still partly in the shadows, but it's trying to emerge. And certainly under the leadership of President Reagan, it's trying to organize an integrated, understandable foreign policy. And that's what we see.